I'm sure everybody knows about the Frost Giant studio starting up RTS, right? Everyone's seen all that stuff. That was that was pretty hyped until I realized they didn't even start the game yet. They were just announcing it for the sake of it, writing off the Blizzard announcement. Kind of sad. Kind of feels bad moment. I was like, oh, hey man, maybe like a year, you know? Yeah. Maybe like 2 max. Turns out they haven't even started. It's like, whoa, that's good, you know? Yeah, you don't even know if it's gonna be like a fantasy setting or like what you don't have any concept art or anything. It's like, oh no. Oh, okay. That's no, that's fine, man. No, it's good. We're good. No, I'm not mad. Not not like I wanted to play, you know. What am I gonna be? Am I gonna be the white row of this Frost Giants game? Like fuck me, whatever. It's cool. 5 years at the soonest. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say numbers, but it doesn't feel great. If it's a military game, I'm gonna be real sad, dude. I don't know if I can play like a Company of Heroes kind of looking game. That might be a deal breaker for me. I mean, I'm still gonna play it if it's a good game, but I'd prefer like a fantasy. Sci-fi is okay. I'm not a huge fan of the sci-fi. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not too picky. Anime Cowboys confirmed. Yeah, I don't know. Cowboys would also be weird. I was talking about that with a friend though about anime themed RTS. You just like you lure in the weebs with like waifu commanders or something, and they're like your hero units. I don't know. StarCraft's the last real game I'll ever play. The amount of time I've spent on StarCraft 2. Lol. Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. I understand. It's hard to pick up games nowadays. Yeah, I see a lot of the one thing I was worried about actually, because I see the Frost Giant announcement, and obviously I'm like really happy about it, and a lot of people are pretty stoked, as they should be. The future of RTS has been pretty uncertain as far as like what comes after Blizzard and when the end of Blizzard even is. But I don't know. I saw some people saying how they want to, they really want Blizzard to appeal to like the more casual audience and stuff, and I think that's a pretty dangerous line to toe, because even though it would be good to have more casual players in the game, it's also got to be rewarding enough that it's actually worth playing. You know what I mean? Because I don't think what a lot of people realize is like the reason why StarCraft's good. StarCraft is like an actually good game, is because it's worth the time investment. Getting better at something, the the feeling of actually improving is what makes the game worth it to play. And when you do something like if auto inject went through, for example, like I really don't know if I would be playing for as long as I have. I might have just tapped out a legacy a couple of years ago, for all I know. I think that's definitely a possibility, or maybe change like races or something, because Zerg would look totally different with auto injects. I think it's just like a really dangerous line to be like, we need more players, so we should just make the game as accessible as possible. I think StarCraft is like, I guess not StarCraft necessarily for the future, but RTS is like a necessary evil of esports, where we kind of hold our corner of like, we're the difficult genre, and if you really want to just rely on yourself and improve, then you'll always have RTS. I think fighting games also fulfill that role. I think fighting games get a lot of respect for similar reasons, just because the execution is so difficult. You know, you gotta respect the time it takes to learn frame data of, you know, every character and properly learn how to punish, and you know, it's like all these things. That's a real thing. But when you make everything just auto combo, what's the point? Or if there's, you know, just no combos. That's kind of what Street Fighter V did for anyone who played Street Fighter V. They kind of just dumbed the game down so much to make it as accessible as possible. But what people realized from that is that it wasn't really about making it accessible, but rather making the game fun. Games just gotta be fun. That's all we really want. All RTS players want is a fun game. Please. Please give me a fun game. I think there's certain designs and like units that are just inherently not fun. Not to mention like design wise, just being difficult as hell to manage. But I think they could learn a lot from StarCraft in that way. I know a lot of players I've talked to, at least, really don't like StarCraft at you know, in Legacy specifically, because of the design choices they made, like making it like these game-breaking units that could just ruin the game in 5 seconds because you weren't looking or something like that, you know, like a disruptor or something like that. You work so hard to build up this army and then it just gets one shot, you know. There's just like inherent stuff like that that I think need to go away. But also like keeping up the skill of getting your army up, I think, is huge. One reason I even mentioned those because I notice a lot of people like kind of like pressuring, like the tone I see people taking when talking to the Frost Giant, like Twitter or something like that, or like on forums and stuff. They seem really like aggressive about like you need to make the game like this. This is how I want the game. It's like, whoa, man. You know, it doesn't need to be accessible to everybody. You know what I mean? But yeah, what were they talking about? Oh yeah, fucking Frost Giants, man. I really hope people don't like harass the devs to death to make the game as casual as possible, just for the sake of keeping the game alive and appealing to a wider demographic. Because I think that's like that's what 2v2s are for, and co-op and all that stuff, and arcade's sick. You know, 1v1 doesn't have to be the most accessible thing in the world, because that's literally what happened to fighting games. Is everyone just kept making really accessible fighting games, but no one who actually played fighting games before wanted to play them because it was boring. It was like it just came down to guessing. But RTS does not have the luxury of shitting out new games every year. Definitely a lot of pressure on them. I do not feel any envy for those guys. They're gonna get so much shit if they fuck that game up. Do you think Smash fits into that though, especially Melee? Um, well, in what way? I feel like Melee doesn't. I mean, Melee is basically an accident in the same way that Brood War was. So are the best esports just accidents? Yes. You know what I fucking hate? I hate how people will say stuff like, man, like I saw some people saying like, oh man, they didn't get like the OG Brood War devs for Frost Giant Studios team. Like we need those guys to make a good game. Like you guys realize that they just shit out a game and then it just so happened to be balanced, you know? And Brood War isn't even balanced. It took like years and years of map makers trying out like crazy shit and also like discovering many bugs that kind of made things better or worse. And then after that, people selectively chose which bugs were good and bad to then make a game that was like kind of balanced. Like Brood War is a fucking mess, and it's a miracle it worked out. And I feel like Melee is a lot of the same way. Like there's tons of bugs in Melee that ended up to just elevate the game as a whole. But there's also a lot of bugs that are banned, where you're just not allowed to do certain things. There's not a lot of them in Melee. There's probably more of those in Brood War, but point is, they're not some all-seeing geniuses, you know. They're just like some dudes who made a game.